Good evening, everyone. I, Neha Desai, excitedly welcome you all to the third webinar organized by the Office of Alumni Affairs and Advancements. Ahmedabad University takes pride on its alumni community, and constantly interacting with this group is of great value to all the stakeholders at the university. At the Office of Alumni Affairs and Advancement, we are working to curate opportunities where an alum could mentor a student, or you could develop and lead a shared interest group, or an alum could sponsor a student's education, or something that just lets you revisit your university days, like engaging in a student club or volunteering at the university event. So we try our level best to curate events and activities to keep you engaged. We started these series of conversation last month with an objective to connecting our alumni community with each other and initiate a dialogue with them and the university. We invite our distinguished alumni from different schools at the university to have conversation with us, sharing their journey from the university days to where they are currently in their professional lives. We hope that these conversations will bring like-minded alumni in contact with each other and also inspire our current students to do better, to choose the path less taken at times, or just to do good and be the best versions of themselves in whatever it is that they do. Our guests today are alumni from the School of Arts and Sciences. As an alumni, there may not be a bigger honor than being introduced and being in conversation with their very own faculty. So I warmly welcome Professor Nupur Thakur, Assistant Professor at the School of Arts and Sciences, Ahmedabad University, to engage with our alumni speakers. She has done her PhD from Uppsala University, Sweden, and continued with her postdoctoral research thereafter in the Ludwig Institute of Cancer Research until she joined us at the Ahmedabad University. Over to you, Professor Thakur.
Thank you very much, Neha, for your introduction. First of all, I would like to say that it gives me a lot of pleasure and, a sense of pride to introduce our very bright and outstanding students, Rutvi Shah and Homika Arya. Actually, they are the pioneers of this program, I should say, because they were the first batch that we started our integrated Masters in Life Science program. And, we have learned a lot. We have done a lot of experimentation while they were doing their integrated masters. I'm very glad that you both are following your passion. And, Rutvi is now a second-year PhD student at University of Texas, MD Anderson Cancer Center, UT Health Graduate School of Biomedicine, Medical Sciences, Houston, Texas. And Homika is also working as a JRF at National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore, India. And both of these are very reputed institutes for the research purpose. So I welcome you, Rutvi and Homika, for this conversation with me. I am very happy to have an interaction, informal interaction with you guys after a long time. I would also like to welcome all the participants for this inspiring session, and I would urge the participants to please type their questions in the chat box, and I will take those queries later in this session. So I think, first of all, Rutvi and Homika, I would like to ask you guys, about your ongoing research that you are pursuing in your current lab. Can you tell us a little bit in brief that what kind of research you guys are doing? And yeah, please go ahead, Rutvi and Homika, please.
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so as ma'am rightly introduced, I'm working as a JRF, which is a Junior Research Fellow at the National Center for Biological Sciences in Bangalore. And I work in the FLY facility here, which is not a lab, but it's a facility wherein we provide transgenic flies to the people, to the users. And my work here is basically involved with genetics and molecular biology. So if I were to put it in layman terms, assuming most of our crowd isn't familiar with core biology, so I basically make mutant fruit flies. So if you've ever noticed any fruits or bananas, which these tiny little flies hovering around, those are the flies I work with, and I generate mutants. So we get requirements to to create specific mutations, and I do the molecular and the genetics part that is associated with it. Yeah.
Thank you, Homika. Ruthvi, please.
Hello everyone. So like Nupur ma'am introduced, so I'm a second year PhD student, um, and I'm part of a cancer biology program. So basically I work on pancreatic cancer, and I work with mice, and I am looking at the early progression of pancreatic cancer. And my project is basically more focused on the microenvironment, which is, so again, to explain in layman terms, basically the microenvironment is something that surrounds the cells in the pancreas, and it influences how the cancer progresses over time. So I basically study how the microenvironment evolves over time, and how it changes and influences the pancreatic cells to actually eventually form into cancer cells.
Thank you, Ruthvi. So I think you guys from the very beginning were interested in, Ruthvi, I remember you did project with me, and you were interested in cancer biology, right? And Homika, you were always interested in Drosophila genetics. So I'm very glad that, you guys still pursue your passion and your interests that you had earlier. Uh, so I was remembering, when you guys joined at the time, we were in the process of developing this IMS Integrated Masters in Life Science program, and a lot of experimentation was going on, was done, during that time when, to make the program better, because you were the first batch, and we were trying to develop the program as unique, and and I think you guys have faced a lot of challenges, but I think that was kind of exciting too, right? That it was challenging but exciting. So I would like you guys to share your 5 years of experience that you had here at Ahmedabad University. And I would also like to tell you that how does these 5 years in your life, or your journey during these 5 years, prepared you for moving towards the research that you are doing there now. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'll go first then. So basically, during the 5 years that I spent at Ahmedabad University, I had a great time. So basically, right from the first year, I like Homeka too, but I would like start with my experience and in terms of like being involved in the things and stuff like that. So basically, right from the first year itself, so the university hosted international conferences and workshops for high school students. So I was a part of, volunteering for those events. And that is how I got to meet scientists for the first time, like scientists who were outside our institute, and, what kind of work they were doing, and being exposed to the kind of research people do. So, like, that was one of the major experiences and one of the great experiences that I had. Then I think, yeah, during the first year itself, I started something called the Science Club in the institute, where we used to get together once a week and try to discuss the science that we found exciting. And something, if there was like some topic that we found interesting, then we would just pick that topic, and then everyone would read up on it and then give their take on what they thought that actually meant, because none of us knew anything about science at that point, because we were just first years. So we used to just get together and discuss things that we found interesting. So that was a fun experience. Then what the other thing that I was a part of was something called the AU NASI Science Lecture Series. So it was like a popular science lecture series that we organized, and that was funded by the National Academy of Sciences. So what we did for that was we used to host like science lecture series, like the name suggests. So one lecture every month based on popular science topics, and we invited like high school students and other undergrads from all over Ahmedabad to come and attend those. And we invited experts in those fields. So we had topics like a talk on the Ebola virus, since that was what was going on during that time. So we called an expert on Ebola to give a popular science like lecture on that. And then on the Mars mission and like going to Mars and stuff like that. So that was also a fun experience. Apart from these like extracurriculars, even so we also did like a lot of projects that were like a part of our curriculum that also exposed us to a lot of different things in terms of learning different techniques and also being exposed to different areas of life sciences depending on what project you were doing on. Like all of us did different projects, so we were exposed to like a wide variety of things. uh, the other thing that I did was something called the Chiasma, which I'm hoping all of you at Ahmedabad University know of now. So that is something that we started where we conducted workshops teaching high school students again and undergrads the techniques that we were learning, because we realized early on that we were very privileged to be able to learn those techniques, because those techniques were in a way sophisticated, which we didn't realize because it was so easy for us and we had easy access to those things. But that was not the case for people studying a similar field in other institutes. So we tried to do that. And we also, so some of us in our batch, we were also fortunate enough to spend 1 year doing our master's thesis. So that also gave us a very good experience of research and what research actually is, you know. Uh,
80% failure, basically.
yes, more than 80% at this point, I would say, but yes. So basically, I did a bunch of stuff and it was a great experience because doing all of these things helped me decide what I wanted to do in the future and what I wanted from my career. So, yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Rutvi. I would like Komika to share your experience.
Yeah, so like Rutvi said, even I did not expect to be engaged in such activities and lectures, which would invite guests from across the world, not India. So yeah, my journey was way beyond my expectations. And already when you are entering college, it's coming from school to a college is an experience in itself, right? It comes with so much more freedom and control, and you have so many more decisions to make. And then added to that, we were the first batch, so we did not even have seniors as such to look up to and like ask how their experiences were. So we were just discovering things ourselves. More than the research experience and all, I think the university really helped me build my personality, like a personal development. uh, because when I look back, I realized that the university was basically a mini version of the world. So we were basically being prepared to like go out in the world. And coming to what helped me most with my career was the research-based curriculum that we have. So we, like Ruthvi mentioned, that we got the opportunity to do projects across multiple disciplines with different supervisors and even spanning different team sizes. So some projects were individual, whereas some were in groups. So that really helped us get accustomed to the research experience, that is like formulating a research problem, designing experiments, and working on them. And I was even more fortunate that I got to be a part of setting up an entire new lab at our division, which is the Fly Lab. So I was one of the like members who was involved with that. So even that was a different learning experience. And yeah, overall, I think universities helps us give us, apart from the research and skills that are very relevant to our careers, it gives us so many more soft skills like better communication and stuff, which can help in any career, no matter what you want to choose. Yeah, so my experience was quite good. And like we were being experimented on as well, like ma'am said, because we were the first batch. So that had its own perks, and a lot of learning came along with that as well.
Yeah, I remember that, Homika. Yeah, it was challenging, but I think it was very
It was
exciting
fun.
also that we were doing experimentation, we were trying different methods, and trying to make the program the best we could and make it unique. So I think I hope that you guys also had that excitement that I had. So I think many of the students here would like to ask you, because most of us, when we finished masters, we are a little bit confused, where we have to go in this direction, that direction. So I would like to ask you guys whether you guys were determined that you want to go into research, from the very beginning, and you pursue that, or it was like, that you got into the PhD programs or the JRF positions, and then you think that, okay, I will continue with the research. So how was the planning? How did you plan after completing your masters? How did you face all the challenges, and were you determined that you have to continue in the field of research and not going for a job or something else? Please, Ruthvi and Homika.
Um, okay, yeah. So I have not been much of a planner all my life. But towards the end of our program, because we had been part of so many research projects and gathered so much experience around it, it was very obvious to me that the next step would be exploring research, either as a JRF or as a PhD student. So yeah, I was only looking at these opportunities once I graduated.
Okay, thank you, Homika. Yeah, for Ruthvi, you?
Yeah, so I agree with Homika at a certain level. So in terms of the exposure that we had while we were a part of the program, it really exposed us to a lot of things. So I studied a lot of subjects and did projects in a lot of different things. And so that made me realize where my interests were. And so when I got into the program, I thought that research was fascinating and I wanted to give it a try. And once I joined the program, I actually got to do that. And once I did that, it kind of gave me some reassurance that yes, I thought I would like it and I am really liking it. So I want to pursue it further. And so that is why I decided that, PhD was the next step for me, that made most sense. So
Okay, thank you,
yes.
Ruthvi. So yeah, I remember you guys, working from 8 in the morning to 9 or 8 in the evening, continuously working on projects, working, doing practicals, and also your curriculum, like you have a wider spectrum of the, areas of biology. You studied biophysics, biochemistry, and I think do you think the most unique point that we had in our program was that we had access, we had students access to all the high-end instruments like scanning electro. You guys were allowed to use, all of these high-end instruments, and you were actually running those facilities. So do you think that kind of helped you in your career or your research work that you are following now, and do you think it does, I mean, many universities does not do that, so do you think all the universities should follow that, or how is your opinion about that? Ruthvi and Homika, please.
So, yes, I mean, doing all of the hands-on experience, like taking up on the opportunities that we had, learning a lot of different techniques and also handling a lot of different kinds of instruments has definitely helped a lot. And even when we got out, like when I went out to do, summer research internships, or when I went out to do my master's thesis project, I went to research institutes across the country. And I found a lot of similarities between the lab setup that we had at our institute and the lab setup in those research institutes, which were like national level research institutes. So it wasn't very surprising for me and it wasn't a shock for me, when I went there, because I was already familiar with a lot of things in the lab because of what I learned in college. And even in terms of the techniques that I learned during our practicals or our projects. And so when I went to those places, I already had a basic level of training. It was not that I just went there and I was going to a lab for the first time and I did not know anything. That wasn't the case. But I saw people around me who were going through something like that. So the curriculum and the program prepared me a little bit better compared to my peers in that sense. So yeah, it definitely helped a lot. And even after I came here to the US, I still see similarities in the lab setup. So there are
Very nice to
obviously
hear that.
yeah, exactly. And I was very surprised with that and happy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so one of the key attractions that actually attracted most of our batch to our program were the labs in the first place because of the exactly the hands-on experience that, and I think Ruthvi mentioned this earlier, that we don't realize how privileged we were until we like stepped out. So it was like the familiarity was obviously there. And secondly, I also remember people after their dissertation project, like after I interacted with them once they were done with their projects, like for like certain instruments which we really took for granted, we just used to go take our readings and come back. They had to give their samples to particular facilities which had those instruments and then wait for a day or two for the results to come. So all these things really made us realize the sophistication of instruments that we had and the access to them as well.
Okay, very nice. Very nice to hear that. I will just take a break and would like to welcome Balaji, Professor Balaji Prakash. Professor Balaji Prakash, if you would like to convey some message to our students or would have any queries to ask, please, I request you to go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Nupur.
Thank you.
Today, I think today is their day. I would like to be a silent spectator and watch the show today, right? So please go on. Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy and proud to see you both over here. And thank you, Nupur, for conducting this meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm listening to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I think the most, and I remember that at the time you already mentioned Charisma, like you guys did Charisma. I think for those who are not, from AU, and I just want to introduce that, it's a workshop, it's a scientific workshop that is organized by our students, and everything, from the financial part to the execution, everything is done by these students. So I think we as teachers feel very proud to say that, our students do this Charisma, and I feel very proud to say that Homika and Ruthvi were very active participants in that, and they were actually the pioneer in that too, because this was the batch that started this Charisma. And I think this was their planning, their execution, everything was done by them. And now we have followed that tradition, and all the junior batches, every year we are following that. And I think the students are enjoying it so much, and I think they would be really thankful to you guys to start over that kind of culture here, and that kind of, like it's a workshop where you will invite all the students from all over India and would try to teach all these techniques that you have learned during your curriculum, right? So I would like Ruthvi and Homika, that to tell us a little bit more about Charisma, that how did you guys came up with this great idea of executing this Charisma, this kind of workshop. And I should also tell students that our scientific workshop was followed by a cultural program that we have also enjoyed very much. Particularly, I have also enjoyed, and I was always asked to sing over there. So I have practiced singing quite a lot. So please, Ruthvi and Homika, go ahead and tell us that how does all this happens. Yeah.
Charisma is obviously very dear to us because it was our batch that conceptualized it. And should we let them on the secret why we started it? Or is that like a hush-hush thing?
No, you go ahead. Don't worry. Don't worry, go ahead.
So yeah, Charisma was basically a a great platform for us to interact with researchers across India. So we invite registrations across India, and researchers come there to attend our workshops and the cultural fests, wherein they get the hands-on experience over a 3-day period, which we have been getting over the 5-year period. And we share our knowledge with them, our laboratories with them. Each year we try and introduce different topics, which helps us understand them better and share them better, obviously. So I've had the fortune of being both an instructor for 2 workshops and also the core cultural committee member for the cultural fests that are conducted in the second half of KAISMA. And so being an instructor gave us a lot of insights in where we stood, as in the knowledge we had on our subject. So it helped enhance that, and how the techniques that we have learned are applicable for solving issues and research problems. And it was fun interacting with others. It also helped us understand as a biological institution where we stand in comparison to from where the participants belonged, and helped us understand our strengths and weaknesses and where we should work on. And the cultural events were a lot of fun. So since we were the first batch, our population has been very small, and like it gave us an opportunity to interact with our peers and to find out talents that they have, which can otherwise be shadowed in a larger audience. So yeah, Rutvi.
Okay, thank you, Omika. Yeah, Rutvi, please tell yours.
So yeah, I mean, organizing KAISMA was a different experience altogether. So I as well was an instructor for KAISMA. So there were so many things that went into it, because when we decided that we wanted to teach the participants these techniques, we ourselves had done those techniques only a handful of times, right? But when we decided that no, we are going to teach others to do these things, we had to be sure ourselves that we can actually do it. So leading up to the workshops, we used to do like repeatedly those experiments and conduct those techniques ourselves in the lab, making sure that they work out for us so that when we teach them, it works. So we used to be in the lab doing all of the things that we were planning to teach them, troubleshooting here and there, which is also something that has helped me a lot, because when you do research, troubleshooting is a very big part of that, which I've realized now. And KAISMA did a wonderful job training me for that. So yeah, from troubleshooting to figuring out how to do these at a larger scale, because we were teaching like 20-30 people to do the same thing. So making sure you have enough reagents, you have enough apparatus and everything. So all those technicalities, how to conduct these things at a larger scale, and trying to anticipate what could go wrong, and being prepared for that, and all of those things. So along with the technical skills, we also built up soft skills in terms of art of persuasion, persuading people that we want to do this in the lab, please let us do this, and we want to do this event, please
Getting
let us do this
sponsors
event.
also.
Yes. So the professors were very flexible, but we still had to, persuade them a little bit. So
You can say it, Rutvi. Don't worry. Okay, yeah. So I think that brings the whole batch and the whole, like biological and life science together also. Like this was an event that brings us all together, right? I think that was so. I think so you guys were the first batch, and I remember that I was also the first batch when I joined the masters at BHU Banaras in the university, and they were, as you guys mentioned, that there are a lot of challenges, and some things are not working this way and that way, and so it was exactly the same with me. When I joined, and if I look back, I feel that that was the best moment of my life, because of those challenges. I think I did learn a lot, and nothing was going smooth, frankly telling you guys. So I think, but that was the beauty that I feel now at this stage, after so many years, that get me to learn so many things. And I think the first batch is always, you get very attached with the university, with the faculties. So I just want to know whether you guys, feel the same, that as a first batch, you think that this is our university and, we feel pride to be a part of the university and be the first batch of the university.
More than the university, I feel like we are really attached to our campus and the people around. So like we were a small population, right? And the university was there way beyond that. So we were also
No,
trying.
I think Bhumika, I think at that time we were a little bit isolated because of the BLS, being
Exactly. Yeah, it's
separated. The
much
building was
better.
separated, but now we have like the School of Arts and Science, all together. So we are more represented. I know you guys felt a little bit, left out, and every time I used to get that complaint, but I think we have solved that problem now. So we are like kind of a School of Arts and Science. We are all together, and we are working as, Ahmedabad University and not like BLS and the art side and all this. So we are working on that. Yes. Go ahead, please.
And that's great. Like even I know now there's much more inter-school interaction also because of the campuses being common for the school.
Exactly.
I think that will really help the students. But like for us personally, we are really very attached to like our campus and our people. And also because we were the first batch and our institute was relatively new, I feel like we've been part of the majority of the evolution that our division went through and figured out a place in the university. And also the establishment of our curriculum, the Masters in Life Sciences program and stuff. So yeah, I feel more strongly to our campus and our people.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
I mean, I agree with Bhumika totally. It's like we definitely have like a better, deeper connect with the institute as well as the faculty, because it was like we were figuring things out and they were also figuring things out. So it was like, we were trying to complement each other in terms of figuring things out. And that was a great experience and I think we were fortunate that the bunch of people that we were as the first batch was also like a great bunch.
Yeah.
In terms of, we were very vocal about what we wanted, and the faculty were also
I remember
very
that. I remember that, Prithvi.
And the faculties were also like very flexible, and they tried our best to give us whatever we wanted. And yeah, so that was really a great experience, because being the first batch, you're figuring things out on your own, and you are establishing things for yourself, right? So like we started Charisma, so we thought of this, and then we approached you guys with the idea and all the small things. So because there were no traditions in the institute, right? Because since it was like a new institute and we were starting it out, so yeah, we took it upon ourselves that we are supposed to start everything, and we were lucky enough to have you guys supporting us so that we could do all of the things that we did. So,
and just to add on to it, I feel it was a very community experience. Like all of us knew each other by name, be it the guard on the door, to the admin, to all of us. So yeah, just and like Ruthvi and I both got a chance to represent our class as well. So
yes,
so
yeah,
we
both
took
of
our
us were class representatives.
Oh, you guys were the CR for the class. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were the one solving problems for everyone.
At least trying to.
Trying to solve problems for everyone. Yeah. So I think you would be very glad to know that, the students are so much into this, charisma, and they are so fascinated by this that even during the, this corona pandemic going on, we were like, we are not going to conduct. The faculty was a little bit hesitant to go during the corona time, how we are going to conduct charisma and everything. But hats off to the students, they said, no, we are going to conduct it online. And I really feel proud that they did it excellent work in what the online platform, they use the online platform to do the charisma.
No,
So
definitely. I mean, I agree with
yes,
you. Like once, because like our juniors, they really stepped up and they took over, and they have been doing a pretty good job. I mean, they are raising the level of charisma every year, and that makes us feel so happy that, they are building up on what foundation that we had set up. So they have these Instagram page and all of those, and they keep on updating it. So I follow those, and I try to keep track of what they're doing.
Okay, good.
So it really makes me feel very happy that, they have not abandoned it, and they are, taking it seriously, and they're as excited about it, maybe more than what we were. So yeah, that's a great feeling.
Yeah, they are keeping your tradition alive, and even trying their best. Yeah. So I see in the participation, list that we have lots of students, the current students. So I would like to ask you guys if you have any questions for Ruthvi and Homika. Please raise your hands. Neha, can we allow them to?
We usually have a practice of they can write to you, and then
Okay.
you
Okay.
you can
So-
mention their name, and you can then read out their questions.
Okay, so I think here is one question from Anubhuti Sarkar. I think she's our student and current student. And she is asking that, is Indian master's degree valid abroad? So any one of you would like to take?
Yes, so I had an Indian master's degree from Ahmedabad University, and it is completely valid abroad. So yes, don't worry about that at all. Yes.
So Anubhuti, it is completely valid, to have the degree, master's degree from Ahmedabad University, and you can go abroad like Ruthvi did. Yeah, so we have another question from, Shagun Agrawal, that would you like to share your JRF entrance exam preparation and at the same time working on the master's thesis? So any one of you would like to take that question, Homika or Ruthvi?
Yeah, I'll take it. So I have cleared GATE exam in the life sciences category. And it is very easy to, like, for me, it was quite easy to manage because preparing for the exam along with my dissertation project, because most of the syllabus we've already gone through during our master's curriculum. So it's just it's quite manageable, and you just have to focus on this, and you can easily skip out a few topics here and there. It does not, because the only focus should be to minimize your negative marking. So a lot of my peers did that mistake, that they tried to attempt too many questions, and that took away the marks which they scored from their positives as well. So yeah.
Okay, thank you, Homika. We have another question from Mehak, but she wants to know about the interview and the examination for PhDs, and that experience that you had, and how should one prepare for those. So for the interviews and the examinations for the PhDs. So Homika and Ruthvi, would you like to take?
Okay, I can step in. So uh, at least, so I had only applied to universities across the US for the PhD program. And over here, the way the PhD programs go is that ideally the way they do it is that they have something called the visitation weekend, where they invite students over to the university, and then they take them around the university and conduct interviews, and then the students also get to meet the current students and the faculty. But being international students, we only have like Skype interviews. So I gave a bunch of Skype interviews to the places that I had applied to. And so basically, the interviews are pretty straightforward. They, and like, they're an interesting experience, I would say. So basically, what I found based, so I interviewed at 3 universities, and the university that I am at right now, I gave 2 interviews. So there were 2 rounds of interviews before I actually got accepted into the program. And so the way the interviews work, so they work differently at different institutes. So at one of the institutes, the way it worked was the first interview that I gave, they were more interested in knowing me as a person, like what were my strengths and what were my weaknesses, and why I wanted to do research, and what was my career plan, like what I was planning to do after my PhD and stuff like that. So even if you're not completely sure about what you want to do, because I wasn't sure, I still am not sure what I really want to do at the end of my PhD, but you at least have some idea, right? So they are just looking for that confidence that you at least have something to work towards, even though you might change that in the future. So it was about that. And then they asked me about my ongoing research because I was pursuing my master's thesis project at that time. So they were interested in knowing the research I was doing, and they were trying to figure out if I knew what I was talking about. I was not just throwing words in the air, and I actually understood what research I was doing. So they tested me on that. And then they also tested me in terms of what area I wanted to pursue as a part of my PhD and why I wanted to pursue that area. And they also kind of tested me in terms of if I knew what that area really was, and asked me questions, trying to figure out if I know what I'm talking about and stuff like that. So yeah, it's so the points to take away from this would be, first of all, know what research you are doing at the moment. Be very sure about whatever that you're saying, what you're talking about, because otherwise they'll catch you very fast if you're just using fancy words here and there. So know what you're talking about and be confident and be sure of what you want to pursue later in terms of a career path.
And I think they also appreciate if you don't bluff around, like if you don't know
Yeah,
something, just
totally.
say that I don't know. And I can shed a little bit of light on how to get a JRF, like my JRF experience in India. So I was recruited after 3 screening rounds. So the first one was based on our CV and a very short SOP sort of a thing. And the second one was based on the letter of recommendation. So it's very important in our field to have very good letters of recommendation. That really helps you get where you want. And the third round was the interview round. I have given a couple of interviews for JRF positions, and in all of them, they never focused on the technicalities as much as they wanted to know me as a person and the master's dissertation project. So the work you have already done is very important. They won't test you on the knowledge of the subject you're being recruited for, because they probably assume that if you know what you're doing, you can like catch up on it and learn about it during your tenure. But yeah, it's very important to know what you have done and not bluff around.
Okay, thank you so much, Homika and Rutvi. So I think that I'm also a little bit like, I have a question for you guys regarding the same thing, that how. So when you started applying when you were doing your master's thesis, right? So tell us about that journey. How many applications did you put, and did you get any reply? Because some of the faculties, or let's say some of the institutes, don't reply you at all. So how was like drawbacks, and how did you come over that kind of thing, that that you get rejected sometimes, and how did you cope up with that? So please tell us about those incidences when that happened.
Okay, so for JRF, for the position of JRF, I gave 3 interviews, and one went horribly bad, and the other 2 I managed to get in. And again, they asked the same things that I discussed before. And coming to PhD, I have been trying to apply for a PhD in Europe only. I haven't applied in India, and very selected places. So I haven't been able to get through, but all of them have replied.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what went horrible, Homika, in your first interview? Can I ask that?
I just blanked out. So
Okay.
I had 2 interviews that day. So the first one was for NCBS, where I'm currently at. So that went so great that I underestimated the one coming forth, and I blanked out.
Okay, I think that happens to all of us, and I think you did a great job at NCBS, and now you there. So, yeah, Rutvi, your please.
Okay, so like Nupur ma'am already said, so I also started applying during my master's while I was pursuing my thesis project. And I applied to, so I wanted to do a PhD in the US. So that's all, like, I only applied to the US. And so I applied at 8 programs and I got interviews, like, I got invited to give interviews at 3 places and I got 3 admits. So I got accepted at 3 PhD programs. And overall, I think I gave 5 or 6 interviews leading up to those admits. So, yeah, and I was very scared if I was going to get in. So, as a backup, I also applied to a couple of master's programs over there because I was like, if I don't get in, maybe I'll do like a second master's and then again apply or something. But yeah, so that was my experience. And then eventually I ended up coming here at MD Anderson.
So did you guys face, like, Homika, you had this that you blanked out, during the interview. So how did you, cope up with that? And you said that, okay, no, I need to move forward, and I don't have to think about that, and just leave these things, like the institute not replying me or something, but I need to continue on the journey that I have started. So what kind of inspired you to continue with that?
So bad interviews obviously like bog you down, but it just lasts for a day or two. One thing that really helps is having a strong support system. So like within our college, we have really good friend groups who really support and encourage us. So that really helps. So they keep telling you, no, no, it's okay, it'll happen. You just keep giving interviews. We know you'll make it. That even for the NCBS interview, I remember just before the interview, my friends had video called me and they were like, we know you're going to get in and this and that really helps. Even though you don't believe in yourself, just like your support system telling you, that really helps. So yeah, they are a very big
Okay.
part of how I keep going.
Okay, very good. Yeah, Rutvi, you would.
Yeah, I mean, I agree totally because it's like you have some expectations from yourself, but most of the times that is not what actually happens. So it's like, yeah, I definitely agree. It's very important to have a support system. So yeah, my friends and my family, like, they have been very supportive in that sense because so I in general like to complain a lot about things and they know that now. So they try their best to console me and make me understand that no, just chill out, it'll be fine. So yeah, a support system is really important.
Okay. So you would like to convey to your, young students who are still struggling, and they are in this phase, especially in this, difficult times that they have. Would you have any kind of a message or something with the experience that you had? You had lots of, your life has sometimes disappointments, and and then now you guys are at a very good position there. And so, do you want to convey something to your juniors and all the students who are there at Ahmedabad University?
I would just say that it's really okay to not know where you are going or where you are. Like, even though it appears on the face of it that Ruti and I are very sorted in life, it is really not. Yeah, like I would just encourage them to keep trying new things. Like Rutvi discovered her passion after trying different projects. So along with academia, like they should keep engaging themselves in extracurriculars. Like a few of our batchmates through the extracurricular activities at our university discovered different alternate passions like photography and stuff and have made a career out of it. So it's okay if you don't know where you are. We are as clueless as you. We are all in the same boat. So yeah, take it one day at a time. It's okay.
Yeah,
And we're
I think
always there if
now,
you want,
yeah.
yeah, if you want to talk or anything.
Yeah, I think Homika, that's a wonderful answer, and that brings me back. I think there was one student who was very much interested in photography, and he pursued, even if having a life science masters, and we all encouraged him to go ahead with that career. And I think we this is what the beauty is, that here at AU, that you can at Ahmedabad University, that you can pursue whatever you feel like, what you have passion for. And I think we feel proud that he pursued his career in photography, and I think he was appointed even in the university. He was taking photographs, and I remember that.
And last I talked to him, he was actually planning to create a new field in photography called life sciences photography. So he wanted to merge the things and experiences.
Yeah.
And
wow.
That's a great thing.
That's a great thing. Yes, Ruthvi, please.
So what I would like to encourage everyone to do is, try to expose yourself to as many different things as you can. Know that you want to pursue life sciences, then in life sciences, try to, explore as many avenues as you can in terms of like subjects or techniques or whatever that you want. And I would ideally say get as much research experience as you can, but given the current situation, that is a little complicated. So I would say maybe, just explore in terms of just read as much as you can, because I mean, if you know that you really want to pursue research, then reading is a big part of it. And it can be boring at times, but it is really, really important. So, just try to read a bunch of different things, because that will also give you some clarity as to where your interests lie. And it's okay not to know everything at a given time. You can, take it as it comes. But yeah.
And also,
I think
maybe they can focus on building a network also. Like a lot of scientists and supervisors, they help you connect with people. So it'll be good if like they're really into it. Networking would really help them.
Yes, and you can reach out to us as well anytime. If at all we can be of any help, we would be happy to, yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Ruthvi and Homika. And I think I'm glad that you raised this point, because our students at this stage, they are really disappointed, because they have not been, some of the batches have not been even to the labs, and they are so looking forward to work in the lab, do practicals, and I feel sorry for them. But as you say, we have to do the best we can. And I think it's their time to read a lot, get their concepts clear, and this is the opportunity that they should utilize, so that they, I mean, as Ruthvi was mentioning, that reading is a very big part of science. So I would I mean, and that's really, really true. So I would suggest all the batches, those who are, I know that it's a very difficult situation. And if I were a student, I would like to go to the lab, I would like to work over there, and to explore things. But in the recent situation, with the pandemic going on, it's very difficult. So please utilize your time, read a lot, and get the knowledge. And that's what I think, Ruthvi, I think you brought a very good point here.
Yeah,
right?
and it looks pretty boring.
Yeah,
That,
it
oh
is.
my God, I don't want to read this research paper, but you just have to struggle through it because it is really, really important.
Yeah.
So just struggle through it.
Yeah. So I think that's a very, very important suggestion, and especially when you are all in this difficult situation, and I think utilize your time in the best you can. And I think reading is the best that you can do right now.
But also have fun, because when you look back, you'll only remember these moments.
yeah, that's true. So I think there is Neha, would you like to ask? Yeah. So
well, not quite ask, but request all our audiences, participants here, if you could switch on your camera while the conversation is on for a minute. We would love to take quick screenshots for you being with us all the time. So Nupur, Homika, Ruthvi, please continue the conversation, so we'll quickly take a few screenshots. Thank you. Over to you back again, Nupur.
Okay. Yeah, so
This is
okay,
awkward.
yeah, so we were there. So I think there is a question that Mehak want to continue, and she wants to ask you that the process that, you know, having a PhD from abroad and from India, how different they are. So would you, do you, because one of you is in India, you know, one of you, so just tell us you know, a little bit about how, what do you feel the difference is. And that's what I think she wants to ask about the process.
I think Ruthvi, you're better suited to answer this.
Okay. So I so what I would like to say is that the pursuing a PhD in India and abroad are like very different experiences on their own. And I can speak from the little experience that I have pursuing a PhD here at this point in time. But so over here, the way it works in the US is so you apply to a program and you don't really need to narrow down a field or a subject area while you are applying. What you can do is you can do lab rotations, and the way it works is you can reach out to various labs doing research in the program that you've accepted and you are going to join. And you talk to the different PIs of those labs and discuss what ongoing projects that they have. And then based on your interest and what you want to learn, or you know what kind of an experience you want, you can decide to go to their lab and do like a rotation. So in my program, the way it works is we have 3 rotations, and each rotation lasts around 8 weeks. So you go to the lab, you spend 8 weeks in the lab, and you either help the grad students in the lab or the postdocs in the lab with their projects, or they'll give you a small project of your own that you're supposed to pursue, along with learning the techniques and you know, all those things. And at the end of the rotation, uh, you decide, or as most students do it, is at the end of the 3 rotations you decide which among the 3 you liked best and which lab you want to join. And it's like a two-way street, so you need to like the lab and the lab needs to like you as well. Only then will they take you in. So it goes both ways. So it's really important to be at the top of your game because you want the lab to take you as well. And so that is how it works. And then once you decide on a lab and once you start, so the first year is basically just lab rotations. And then your PhD actually starts from the second year, where you've now joined a lab and you're trying to figure out a research project with your PI and, you know, collecting preliminary data and building up on your project. So that is how it goes in the US. And in India, from what I have heard, it basically is you try to figure out the project with your PI in the beginning, as in the beginning itself, and then you know, come up with a plan and try to pursue it. So after, so keeping the lab rotations aside, I think they're very similar in terms of how the process goes forward. But I think it is a little bit different in Europe, because over there you're supposed to decide everything before you actually join there. So you're supposed to come up with a project, have your proposal ready. And so once you actually join, you just get started. Because in Europe, the PhD is also much shorter. It's only 3 years. While in India and in the US, there is no time limit to it. It's like you start and then you hope to finish in 5 years, but it can also take longer.
Well, I think it differs in Europe too. I mean, I think in Germany, yeah, they try to finish off in 3 years, but the rest of the Europe, it can take 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So because I did my PhD from Uppsala University, Sweden, so it took me 4 years to graduate. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Homika, would you like to tell us a little bit more about the Indian? Because yeah, you have more experience in that.
Yeah, so I am not a PhD student, so I would not know how to contrast these things. But however, I can shed a little bit of light on the admission process because I've been through both India and Europe, the admission processes. So what I've realized abroad for applying abroad is your SOP, that is your statement of purpose, and your letter of recommendations really matter. And it also helps if you have a language certificate, or the English language certificate. Whereas in India, I think it's very essential for you to crack one of the examinations. So you need to be well aware of all the examinations and also the institutes you are targeting. What examinations do they accept? So some of the institutes, they have their own exams. So you need to clear that before taking an admission there. So when you're in your final year, I think you should gear up and prepare and educate yourself about all these examinations and give them.
So I think that this leads to another question that I think I'm getting from Pranchal here, that he wants to know what's the difference between taking up JRF and PhD. So I think Homika, you would be the right person to ask, and which one is better, he's asking.
When you get enrolled as a PhD student, you are a JRF for 2 years, following which an assessment is done, and then you're converted to an SRF. So from a junior research fellow, you become a senior research fellow after 2 years of research experience. Your PhD is essentially a well-structured program, and towards the end of it, you'll get a degree. But when you take a job simply as a JRF, you still get a chance to be an SRF in the future, but you are not enrolled in a particular program. It's basically a job. So you're working towards a project you're hired for, or in the lab you're hired at. And but it does not give you a degree or anything by the end of it. Yeah. But the stipend is the same for in either cases, whether you're a JRF or an SRF, along with a PhD student, the stipend remains the same if you have if you have cleared an exam.
Okay, thank you so much, Homika. So I think on a lighter note, I think if I remember, or if I can see, Bhavya is here. I'm sure you guys all remember Bhavya, right? And the question itself tells me that it's the same Bhavya that we know. So the question is to Homika and Rutvi, is that how homesickness has affected you guys? So Bhavya, I would like you to, switch on your camera and, show us. We would love to see you. And yeah, if you are here, Bhavya, please.
He's one of the most distinguished among us.
Yeah, exactly. I think no one can forget him. So, and he's here. So I think he could ask a question, himself, and I don't have to do that. So Bhavya, are you here? He's not gonna switch on his video, I think. Okay, so let's
he's here. Hi.
Where is he? Okay. Hello,
Hello.
Bhavya. Hello, Bhavya. Nice to see you here. Nice to see you.
Nice
so
to
you
see
see,
you as well, ma'am.
I was right. When I read the question, I saw it can be only one Bhavya, no one else.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, how are you doing? Do you have this question for Homika and Rutvi about homesickness?
Yeah, for both guys, because even I have faced issues with some homesickness. I mean, not a lot, but still, I was curious that how you guys are coping up with that. So yeah.
Well, I can go first. So yes, I am a little homesick as well, because I've been trying to come back to India, but given the situation, it is not the best idea at the moment. So I'm just hoping that maybe this December I am able to come back, because I know there's talk about a third wave coming in as well. So I'm just dreading that it's not anywhere around that time. But let's see. Yes, because I couldn't come home last year as well. So if I manage to be back this December, it will be like after 2 years, which is a very long time. So, yep.
I think she will start crying here. So, Bhavya, you should. Yeah, Homika, please, you go ahead.
I'm very close to home as such. Bangalore is not
Okay.
very far from Gujarat. So, and because we have so much virtual aid at hand, the Zoom calls and video calls and everything keeps us going. So yeah, I'm good at that end. I'm enjoying, actually, I'm enjoying living away from family and by myself.
So, Bhavya, you are asking this question. I should ask you that whether you are homesick and where are you?
I am right now in Newcastle, Australia, and again, just like Rutvi's case, there have been so many plans of coming to India. We have planned so many times. So, for example, I was supposed to come back this March, but of course, so the COVID situation is just so unfortunate that it could not have been. But yeah, I mean, I'm not feeling exactly very homesick. It's just that there are always these occasions, right? Especially now when you're seeing your friends, when you're seeing all these people you know again. So you just like that. It's kind of just like instinctive that you feel that, oh, I do miss it, like back of the mind now. Just makes you
Okay.
realize.
Yeah.
So
This is
tell
the
us
community.
about your journey, how you went to Australia. And okay, I'm sorry, we are shifting.
That is totally fine.
Yeah, so what are you doing over there? And yeah, tell us about that.
I just started my PhD at the University of Newcastle. It's been just under a month that it's commenced. I was doing my master's in environment from Macquarie University in Sydney. So for me, because I did my master's in life sciences, I was always kind of leaning towards environmental sciences because, again, the dissertation really helped in Nagpur, which was wonderful that I was given this opportunity. So from there, I always had this leaning. And yeah, I think from there, things did lead to like, I just strongly believe that if you really are passionate about your field and pursue it with with its ups and downs, highs and lows, then something would definitely come your way sooner or later. So I was just lucky enough that a good opportunity came in, a project which had some elements of the dissertation project that I had done back in Nagpur, so I could secure that. So yeah.
And I think now they are making a DBLS gang over there also. A lot of students and like from our and faculty from our division have gone there.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yes, true. So it will be a little BLS over there.
Yeah, so that makes me a bit less homesick.
Okay, good. Thank you, Bhavya, for joining us. And yeah, thank you very much. And wish you all the best for your future.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So I think we will continue, Rutvi and Homika, because there are a few more questions that are there in the chat box. And one from Dinesh Kumar. So he wants to ask that being the first batch to build the foundation for the upcoming student, how much was it a responsibility for you to take it in the right way, or was it? And how much of a tackle was it to overcome certain obstacle on the way, if there were any?
I think Rutvi will back me up on this. We never thought of it as a responsibility. It just came naturally to us. So we never looked at it that way. We were just trying to make our university life better. And in doing so, we were laying a foundation for the upcoming students.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Like laying a foundation was like one of the consequences. I would say that was never the agenda for us because we just wanted our college life to be good and exciting. So
you're telling you didn't think about your juniors at all?
Like we didn't think primarily in that direction. But yeah, and so yeah, we did have some obstacles, but I think if you're with the right people, then you can always find a way through those obstacles. So I think we were lucky in that aspect. So yeah, it worked out well for us, I would say.
Okay, thank you, Rutvi. And so there is one question from Rohan Ray. He's our student. Ma'am, what are some other job opportunities except being a researcher in the field of cancer biology? I mean, you have two other examples, Rohan. You know, it's like Bhavya and Homika. They are not into cancer biology, so I think that should answer you that it's not only the cancer bio. There are other fields of science also that you can pursue. But Homika and Ruthvi, I open the question to you guys. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you don't have to be like you don't have to confine yourselves to academic research per se. You can join some pharmaceutical companies and things like that. And yeah, apart from that, I think IPR is also an upcoming field where you can combine your experience of life sciences with law and work around that. Except that, Ruthvi, do you think
So
of?
I think I would like to
So
add here, Homika, you brought a very good point, and I think our university is working very hard on this. That to have that kind of interdisciplinarity. So now we have like the foundation program. We have lots of courses wide across that we can take. From any area. And as you are saying that the science with the law. So now in the universities, it's much more open. Than the time that you guys had. So I think we are moving into that direction, and because of the foundation program and because of the electives that they are allowed to take any of the electives from the whole university, so they can combine different disciplines or and make good kind of a discipline out of that.
Yeah.
So that is what is
Yeah,
happening
also for
nowadays, I think.
teaching or technical jobs. I think that is also there. And writing, scientific writing is also a very
exactly, that's what I was going to bring up. Scientific writing is also a big field, and if you like writing, there are a lot of opportunities where you can, you know, do technical writing for companies and stuff like that. So that is one thing. And then you can also, like, we had a classmate who went on to pursue an MBA after her master's degree. So you could go into that direction and then, maybe be at a managerial position at a biotech or a pharma company by pursuing like a management route or something like that. So yeah, there are a bunch of options that you can pursue. And that is why when I say try to expose yourself as much as you can, even for these different areas that you can build up on with your life sciences experience. So yeah.
Okay, so thank you. We will move ahead. I think Anil has one question. He's also our student. He wants to ask you guys how Ahmedabad University makes you excel in read and write a research paper.
I think Homika has much more experience in that field. You should take that.
Could you repeat the question? I didn't get the word prior to read and write a research paper. What does he want us to?
Makes you excel in read and
we have not
read
excelled. But yeah, it really enables us to be better at it. So I have 2 or 3 publications from our division itself, and I was fortunate to collaborate with different supervisors, and I was a part of the writing process in one of them. So our faculty is very easily the communication has never been a problem with our faculty at our division. So it's a very open and free process. So they really help us and guide us in that. And as far as reading goes, we as part of the curriculum of quite a few subjects, our faculty encourages us to read a few research papers. So we have a course called research methodology, where we are actually taught about how to go about these things. So yeah, that helps as well. And Ruthvi's initiative, the science club, really helped us. It exposed us to quite a few research papers.
Yeah, I agree on that, because it's like, yeah, as far as the writing process goes, it's very open. You can, so, and it really depends on the PI and the faculty that you're working on, and on you, how much involved you want to be in the process, in the writing process, because it's also a very good experience. And when you're writing a research paper, you also need to read so much that you get to know a lot about your project even while you are writing the paper. So I think it's a great skill to develop, and uh, the university did a great job in, trying to
Also,
include.
yeah, I think another thing that helped us was our project reports. So
Yeah.
we had to
Oh, yeah.
submit a project report at the end of each project that we did. So that also helped us familiarize ourselves with literature review, which is a very essential. It's basically reading all the research that already exists and like like proving how that is like associated with the current work that you're doing, how your research work is relevant. So that also helped. Our project reports were very crucial in that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they were like very thorough. So we were asked to write the reports like a mini thesis, I would say. They had to be so much in detail. So,
So
yeah.
I think you guys have 3 or 4 theses in your, whole, because you I think did 3, 4 projects with all of us, and yeah.
We
So
also got some guidance from the already existing PhD students that are there at our facility.
good. Yeah. Thank you, Rutvi and Homika. I think the next question is from Neha. Neha, would you like to ask, or I should? Okay, just go ahead. So she wants to ask you, Rutvi, that how is your university life there, in US is different in comparison to the university life that you had here at Ahmedabad University?
So it is quite different over here in terms of, so first of all, I still haven't been able to go through the real experience because 7 or 8 months into when I actually joined is when COVID happened. And so everything shut down, including the labs. So my PhD was essentially at a pause for like 2.5 months. And then I was able to resume. And in terms of like the social life or something, it still isn't back to normal yet because uh, even at the university on campus over here, we are still not allowed to meet in person, like for more than 5 people. So basically, we can't have any events here as well. But before that, so here the way it works is my program is like an umbrella program. So you come in as a student for the PhD in biomedical sciences program. And then once you are here, there are 8 different sub programs that you can join from. So we have like 8 options, and then you pick one. And then that is, and basically that is like your, not, I wouldn't really call it a group because it's like at a bigger scale, but like that is the bunch of people that you see most of during your PhD. And so all these programs, like we have retreats where ideally the way the retreats work are, so the students and the PIs who are affiliated to those programs, like we'll go somewhere around Houston and spend a weekend there, and we will like present posters and have scientific talks and invite people to give talks and stuff like that, have some competitions, and socialize with each other and stuff like that. So that is something that we used to have, but I was at least fortunate enough to attend one retreat during my first year, but after that we haven't been able to conduct any of those. And the other big social aspect of the program over here is the visitation weekend that I was talking about, right? So every year people apply to the program, and then the admissions committee will select some people who we will actually invite to come over here. So we fly those people in here, and they spend like 2.5 days, and we take them around the campus. And so they give interviews, they interact with the current students and the current faculty. And so we have this social event called the Friday Afternoon Club, where at the end of their interviews, like, so they have like a long day of interviews because they're giving interviews all day long. And then we get together where they invite the students who have come here to interview, current students, which is us, and all the faculty to, get together, have some snacks and stuff, and interact with each other so that, they can ask questions about how things really are over here and stuff like that, which is a lot of fun because you also get to meet faculty and everyone, because generally everyone's so busy, you don't see them around otherwise.
So how about the labs over there, Ruthvi?
So the labs are, so the system over here is we don't have particular labs. So we have big common labs, and then particular PIs have their aisles in those big shared spaces. And so the department that, and we have a lot of departments as well. So my department is relatively small. So we have like a shared space, and we also have a lot of shared instruments and all of those things. So like we have access to all of those things. But if we want to use like high tech instruments, like flow cytometers or mass spectrometers, or if you want to do like mass spec or sequencing and stuff like that, then we have cores. So they are specialized labs who just do that, and they have expert technicians who do that. So we can just send our samples over to them, and they'll run those for us and then send us back the results and stuff like that. So for like high end technologies and stuff like that, we have these specialized cores, but for basic things, like we have all of that in the labs.
Yeah, it's the same thing at NCBS as well. Exactly the same thing here.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'll just go with the last question as the time is running out. It's 6:50. So I think there is a question from Bhakti. She wants to know, is double masters, one from India and one from abroad, equally prestigious as PhD? So I think Bhavya would be the right person to ask. But yeah, please go ahead. And I think that I will end the session with this question. Yeah.
According to me, I do not think that a double masters can equate a PhD.
Yes, I agree, because the training and the experience you get at the end of a PhD is very different from what you get at the end of a master's. And even keeping that experience and that learning aside, like even on paper, when you see it, when you're applying for jobs, there are very specific jobs that really require a PhD. Like that is like a basic requirement, because you need that extensive research experience in order to, do those jobs. Like if you're applying for like an R&D position at a biotech or a pharma company, or if you want to have a lab of your own, open your own lab, then PhD is like a basic requirement. And a master's doesn't really equate to that.
So a PhD is like at a higher level to a master's, right? So it's okay if you skip a master's and directly get into a PhD, but you cannot like skip a PhD and consider master's.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah. Okay, I think I would end here, and I would really thank you, Ruthvi and Homika, for this fantastic conversation. I think I'm really happy to see you guys actually, and I wish you all the best for your future, and be in touch. Of course, you will. And I would also like to thank the Office of Alumni Affairs, all the members of especially Neha, for arranging this and giving me the opportunity to have this kind of interaction with lovely students. And I think I forgot to thank Bhavya, but he did participated. So thank you, Bhavya, for for being a part of this conversation. And lastly, I would like to thank all the participants to join us, and especially on a Sunday evening when you guys have other plans. And yeah, so thank you all very much, and keep yourself safe and take care. So I think in the end, I will just like to end with a quotation from, by Martin Luther King, which says that, especially in this Corona time, I found it very, very, impressive. And that keeps me going, is that we must accept finite disappointment, but we must never lose infinite hope. So with this, I would like to thank you all for the participation. Keep your hopes high and keep moving. Don't stop. Thank you. I will hand over to Neha for the conclusion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nupur, and both our alumni, Homika and Rutvi, for a very insightful conversation. We enjoyed hearing about your life and the journey, life at the university, and the work you do with the fruit flies and the mice for the cancer research. It was nice to know how you reached where you are right now, and all your memories that you talked about while you were at the university. I think it reiterates the fact that one really needs to be active and present and participative to make the most of the university life. And also that Ahmedabad University is truly in lines with the international standards of education and academia. And with such interactions, our ultimate goal is to establish a connect with all our graduates and current students, and also to provide you with a platform, to reconnect with your classmates, develop a network of professional opportunities, stay informed on what's happening here at the Ahmedabad University. And, we want you to stay connected, everything about us at the university. And we are committed to work to widen your outreach, our outreach. And we welcome you all to tell us about your achievements, your accomplishments, get featured on the Ahmedabad University website, on social media handles. Not just that, but in case you're at a crossroad wondering which way to go, reach out to us then too and discuss. We'll sit together and discuss your best way forward. And, like while you were at the university, if you have ideas for events and activities, come tell us and we will together organize it. All you have to do is to email us. You know the email ID. It's alumni@ahduni.edu.in. And please remember, that Ahmedabad alumni community is your community. And on that note, I thank you again, Professor Nupur Thakur, and both our distinguished alumni, Homika and Rutvi, for engaging us with your talk. Special mention to Bhavya also. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for the conversation with you. And thank you to the audience for taking time out on Sunday evening, being curious, asking so many questions, making the whole talk so interactive and meaningful. A big, big thank you to my entire team at the university to put this event together. Thank you, everyone, again. Have a peaceful evening and a very productive week ahead. Thank you. We are still logged on for a few minutes in case you want to interact with each other off the record, or you want to exchange your email IDs or something. We still have a little bit of time, but otherwise signing off. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Should we share our contact details or like our email IDs?
Yeah, we can maybe write that in the chat box, I guess.
If you're okay, we would love that. Yes. We've had faculty members also attending the event, and we have a lot of current students who, of course, asked you so many questions. And it was wonderful to see them smile year to year when they saw you guys. For that little moment when I asked to switch on the camera, and everybody was so happy. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, this was a great experience, and it was a lot of fun doing this. So thank you so much for inviting us.
Quite nostalgic as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I completely understand. I think the best is that I could see you guys, and all of you. I wish we would, you guys will all come together, and visit us at Ahmedabad University.
We will plan something we want to, but it's the pandemic. We don't know how
exactly.
things are going to move ahead.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is there any reunions planned? Like, does the Alumni Association plan reunions?
Yes. So we would love to have one gala reunion or a grand reunion. We're looking somewhere in the winters, but let's see how our days forward goes, considering the pandemic. As what Rutvi said somewhere in the conversation, third wave is expected. Yeah. So then we really don't know how it's going to be. But we're all keeping our fingers crossed, almost it's high time and long time that we all want to start coming to the campus. And
yeah, I think it has been too long. yeah, I think it's getting tougher day by day, but we have to go on, you know, keep moving because it's tough.
True, true.
Yeah. So I think Tuisha and who all are there, Riti, thank you so much, all of you guys. Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this
Great
and helping us out.
It's really great hearing from you all. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.